Hi, welcome to Boom Boom Now. I'm Kate. I'm super happy you're here, and if you could take a quick minute and subscribe and thumbs up, and at the end maybe share, that would be super great. I would really appreciate it. So today I'm talking about nostalgia. I have to say, it's kind of weird to admit this, but I'm sort of obsessed with the concept of nostalgia. I think right now, maybe because we're heading into the holidays, it's super up for me. I don't know if the rest of you are feeling that, where you're kind of, I don't know, the holidays bring up weird things, don't they? But anyway, I was thinking about nostalgia kind of in general, and I realized that I've been obsessed with it really for sort of a long time. As I was working on the research for this episode of Boom Boom Now, I was looking back through my files because I knew I had already done some of the research, and I realized I published an article about it a few years ago. So clearly I'm obsessed with nostalgia. I don't know why. I think because I don't handle it super well. It leaves me very wonky, and I'll explain all of that. And if you're one of those people who just trips down memory lane and feels really happy about visiting your glory days, and you come out of it just super happy, good for you. I wish I was as mature as you seem to be. Not so much. I come out of it wonky. Let me explain. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what psychologists say about why some people handle nostalgia in these really positive ways and why some people not so much. And then I want to leave us with two ideas of maybe how to think about it. If you're one of the ones who falls into the camp that I'm in, where it's like nostalgia doesn't really feel that good to me, right? But I can't not go there. That's the other thing. Like I spend time drifting off into these nostalgic moments, but they don't really do good things for me. At the end of the video, I'll share a couple of ideas on how to maybe work on what needs to be worked on so that maybe we can enjoy our glory days like regular well-adjusted people do, if there's any such thing as that. More and more, I believe that not so many of us are so well-adjusted. I think that's one of those myths we fall into. What is that? Like something people, they spread the word out there that there are these well-adjusted people, so the rest of us get to feel kind of not so good forever. I don't know. On to nostalgia. So let me tell you how mine looks. I mean, it can be anything from these memories of these wonderful afternoons as a little kid, running around the neighborhood with my friends back in the good old days when kids were free to roam, and us climbing fences and going into neighbors' yards and playing spy and all kinds of weird and wonderful things that kids do. I can go into nostalgic moments about high school dances back in the good old days when people knew how to slow dance. Y'all know what I mean. You know what I mean by slow dancing, and I do not mean doing the waltz. We weren't that generation, right? Slow dancing was pretty nice. So I can go off into that kind of thing. I don't know if a certain friend of mine watches my videos or not, but if she does, she knows who she is. I have all kinds of memories about stuffing our boyfriends into the trunk of my car so that we could get them in free to the drive-in movie theater. And the really wonderful thing about doing that is then they were a prisoner back there. I mean, there were a lot of wonderful things about doing that. But anyway, temporarily, it's because they were a prisoner back there. And there were the bumps. I don't know if you guys remember the drive-in movie theaters. They had those humps you had to go over to get your car positioned right for the speakers and all of that. And so we used to hit them really hard, and the guys in the back would be bumping around in the trunks and screaming. We could hear through the back seat, which was kind of hysterical, I have to say. But anyway, I can go on all of these different paths, back to the good old days. And at the end of all of that, I feel sort of horrible, right? It's like, oh, those days are over. The good times are gone. That was when the world was good. Now it's not as good. Everybody's on their phone. Or the more personal kinds of things that can get triggered then, which is, wow, back in those days, my life had so much promise. I was going to be a famous writer, and I was going to move to the big city. I didn't even really know what that meant. I grew up in a not big city, in a pretty isolated place at that. And I had this, I knew that great writers lived in big cities. So I was going to graduate and move to the big city. And it's sort of like, where did it all go? Why am I not that person that I was going to be? Why am I at an age now where the road in front of me just doesn't look long enough to achieve all of those things? And I can go into a real funk about this. So for me, nostalgia's fun for like a little minute, and then there's the crash on the other side when I have to realize, like, yeah, that's all gone. Okay. I go into the if onlys. If only I hadn't married when I was so young. If only I had made that move to New York. If only, I'll get this one. If only I hadn't wasted time getting my doctorate and I could have been writing whatever thing was going to make me famous, right? So I go into the if onlys. It's bad. I go on the yellow brick road for a little while, and then afterwards, the lostness of it comes crashing down on me, and I can go into a pretty bad spiral. The truth of it is, my youth wasn't that fun, right? It wasn't that good. Yes, there were the slow dances, and yes, we did that drive-in thing, and yes, kids ran around like crazy banshees until we didn't have street lights, until the porch lights came on, right? Then we had to be home. So there were good times, for sure there were good times. I don't want to be like, oh, poor me, everything was so bad. There were good times. But the truth of it was, my life was not super easy, and I didn't grow up. It wasn't smooth sailing, okay? It wasn't all slow dancing and drive-in theaters, okay? And so that whole thing that I play in my head about those great days with all the promise and blah, 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 yeah, that's not really true. I was miserable a lot. I had undiagnosed ADHD, so I was getting in trouble for all kinds of things, impulsivity, all kinds of nuts. A lot of you know my story by now. I'm not going to go into all of that, but let's just face it, it wasn't so easy sailing, right? And so I've got this glorified past that then makes my present feel just like overwhelmingly horrible. And it's just tough, right? It can be really tough. So what is this all about? I mean, nostalgia seems to be a thing. I don't know if you go down that path ever, but it seems that most people as they age do, right? There's the looking back. Back in the 80s, I want to say around that period, psychologists thought that nostalgia was connected to depression. Then about 20 years later, we hit a time when psychologists are saying, no, nostalgia is this wonderful thing. It allows people to see that they're connected, that there's continuity to their lives, and that while there have been ups and downs, the path continues on and it gives them hope. Okay, that's not how it feels to me, but I accept that maybe that's how it feels to some people. But that became the psychological wisdom, I guess, of that generation of psychologists. So it's this positive thing. I'm finding sprinkled in the research now this idea that it depends on you. Makes more sense to me already, right? So for some people, this path down memory lane can be this really wonderful experience of sort of reliving the best times and finding some kind of warmth from all of that. I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about it because I don't have that experience, so I'm assuming some of you can, and maybe you'll post in the comments what that's like for you, because honestly, I can't even imagine it. And then for other people, it's a little bit more of a dark and gloomy path you're walking, and it can really be a hard go. What this sprinkling of psychologists seem to be saying is that it really depends on your starting point. So if you're a fairly well-adjusted person who's not struggling with depression, whether diagnosed or undiagnosed, you're not struggling with any sort of mood or mental health issues, and you've lived a reasonable life and a reasonably fulfilling life, and you are currently living a reasonably fulfilling life, then nostalgia is this very positive experience that lets you sort of sit back from this wonderful vantage point and survey your kingdom in a sense, right? But if you do struggle with depression, or if your life hasn't turned out to be all that you hoped and dreamed it might be, then it might be a really sad thing. Because let's face it, those glory days, they didn't exist for any of us. Okay, none of us lived quite that sparkly, shiny past that we remember in nostalgia. That is the cleaned up, romanticized version of those days. Research shows that we have this selective memory, right? We remember the super good and super bad, but when we're telling those stories of our past, it's slow dancing at the prom. It's not, the date that the guy stood me up or something, right? That fades out, and those sort of magical moments stay. So then you string together this beautiful pearl necklace of a bunch of magical moments. That wasn't real. That wasn't real. That wasn't the whole story, right? So we're all of us, whether it's making us happy or not, we're comparing our now to a past that is the Disney version, so to speak, right? It's the Hallmark card version of our own histories. So what does this all mean? It's about you. It's about me. I feel like there is some depression that comes with ADHD and that kind of thing. So it's not that I don't struggle a little bit with depression. I think that plays into my response to nostalgia. And there is a sense that I have that the life I'm living isn't all that I had hoped it would be. And that's probably true. I don't know. Do other people feel like they've reached it all? I'm not sure. And I think that's why it's important to talk about this. I have a great life, but it's not great the way I thought it was going to be. My writing gets published, but I'm not famous. I'm not living this, book signings and bohemian Manhattan life. I don't know. Is that what I thought I was going to live? Maybe. But of course, I didn't make the choices that led to that. And then that brings on regret. You see how it can spiral, right? So I think there are two takeaways, maybe three. Let me say two that I planned and this one that just came to mind. This one is I think it's really important that we talk about these kinds of things. I don't know how weird I might be. Does that make sense? I don't know. Do you guys feel what I'm feeling? Do you grapple with these issues? Is nostalgia difficult for you? Do you look at your life now and say yeah, this was my dream? And if not, is that okay with you? How do you handle that? I would love to hear from you. I only know my own experience, and I hope that hearing mine maybe helps you at least think about yours, ask some questions. If you're experiencing anything like what I go through, I hope hearing my experience is helpful. And I would love it if you'd write in the comments whatever you want to write, because I would love to hear if you have other experiences. I would love to grow from those. So please share. I think it's important that we do this. The two takeaways that I had planned for this video, however, are these. One, if the here and now isn't living up to the glory days, we're still here, right? We're still here. And this is something that I'm working on right now. I will share with you all that I'm going to be starting in 2 weeks a Master of Fine Arts in Writing program. I have a bazillion degrees, but this is something that I always wanted to do as an artist. I always wanted to do this. I'm 62. It makes no sense for me to do this. My work gets published here and there, but I think I can take it to the next level. I still believe in that, and so I'm starting an MFA program. There's still time. Is there as much time? Can I drop everything and move to Manhattan and be a cool bohemian writer there? No, I can't. But I can do a whole lot still of what I wanted to do. And my guess is that that's true for a lot of people, right? Even if today doesn't look the way you want it to look, and that's why nostalgia leaves you kind of feeling yucky, what possibilities are still there for you? What might still be accomplished? Maybe finding a life coach or therapist who can help you explore those issues. You can kind of make a plan for how to still grab on to some of those dreams and make it what you meant it to be. The other thing is depression definitely plays a role in having a negative experience with nostalgia. Psychologists have absolutely made that connection. So if you feel like, yeah, that kind of sounds like me, I do struggle with depression a little bit, it doesn't have to be diagnosed. You know if you feel that or you don't. You at least suspect probably, maybe it is time. Maybe the nostalgia experience is kind of giving you a hint and a prod to go talk to somebody. Because if it is because you're struggling with depression, that's much bigger. That's a much bigger issue than the question of what is nostalgia and how should we all feel about it, right? So if that's kind of ringing bells for you, maybe it is time to talk to a therapist. And, you know, a lot of us struggle with childhood trauma that we haven't healed, undiagnosed depression, self-esteem issues. And if those things are up for you and that's what's coloring your experiences of nostalgia, it would really be of so much benefit if you would find help, talk to somebody, and see if you can't shift that underlying problem. I don't know. I guess when I'm enjoying, before I take the plunge after the nostalgia, when I'm sort of tripping down memory lane and remembering those slow dances, it's pretty wonderful, and I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose that great feeling from those intense memories. I just am working on how to not take the nosedive after. And I guess I hope that something in this conversation might help you also if you're one of the people who like me, doesn't do it so well. Anyway, this is just kind of my rambling thoughts on nostalgia. It's a subject I'm super kind of obsessed with and evidently have been for a long time. Here's to the glory days, the ones that are behind us and the ones that are still in front of us. Thank you so much for coming along on this kind of rambling discussion. And please, please do, I'm so serious, please leave comments below. I would love to hear about your experiences. Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. I really do love you all. All right, I will see you in the next one, okay? Bye.